Traders waste money on tools all the time. I thought EdgeFinder would be the same, but after using it in my prop firm challenges, here's the truth. In this video, I'm breaking down my full review of EdgeFinder, how it works, how I actually use it in my trading, and whether it's worth your money in 2025. I'll show you the features that help me with prop firm challenges, the parts I don't like, and who should actually buy this tool. Without further ado, let's get right into it. It has a top setup section. And this is really nice because, as you can see, it gives you an idea of what is very bullish and what is very bearish. And the way that this EdgeFinder uses the calculation is it takes a whole bunch of things such as the COT, retail positioning, seasonality, trend, GDP, MPMI, all these fundamental pieces of data, and then the EdgeFinder basically gives you a score based on how well things are doing. The EdgeFinder has a lot of data, and this is really important because when you're a trader and you're just looking at a technical chart, you might not understand why price moved a certain way. You might see something like a support and resistance or a order block, and you're like, yeah, price hit that order block and that's why it went this way or that way. But it's not just the technicals, there's also fundamentals that are moving the market. This tool is good because it gives you a general picture of how the economy is doing. You can actually go down and you can actually see quickly how is the US economy doing. Here it is summarized all together, and it gives you a bullish score. So you can see that the EdgeFinder is saying that the US dollar is 50%, so it's half because you can see the USD impact, you can see the GDP growth quarter on quarter. You can see that it was a surprise by 0.5% because the actual was 3, the forecast was 2.5, so it's bullish for the currency. This software basically does what you would be trying to do in your head when you're looking at all this data. You'd have to go and grab an Excel and put this. So what's really nice is it gives you an idea of how the economy is doing. And it's not just the US economy that's here. There's also the European Union. It's got the UK. So for example, you can see that the JPY overall, it's actually very bullish, 63% bullish. And you can see that a lot of the indicators are saying bullish. What's nice as well is you can also see the seasonality. The seasonality is basically how does an asset typically perform at this time of the year? And you can see here that it gives you a whole lot of things, like it will say the VIX next week 7.93%. You can also take this and you can move it depending on how much seasonality you want. If you only want from this time to this time, it'll give you a different figure. You can see how this figure keeps changing depending on how you use it. So you can tweak the EdgeFinder to what you like. So that's what's really nice. Now, this is very important, and it's able to give you the COT data. Now, the COT data is released every Friday by the CFTC, and it reflects the hedge funds and institutions' positions from that previous Tuesday. If you look at the CFTC site, it will look very confusing because it's not in a very readable format. So what's nice about the EdgeFinder is that it gives you this nice display of what's going on. So you can see that the Swiss hedge funds are generally 84% short. You can see in gold, they're generally 83% long. So this is good because it gives you an idea of what the institutions are doing. And obviously we want to line up with what the institutions are doing, or vice versa. Maybe your trading strategy relies on actually trading against the hedge funds. Then you can use this data to make your trades. I just want to interrupt this video for a second to talk about one of the prop firms I trade with, Blueberry Funded. What I like about them is that they're a broker-backed firm, which makes them way more reliable than a lot of the sketchy firms out there. If you want to check them out, I've left my link and discount code DANPR7 in the description. All right, let's get back to the video. So what's really nice about the EdgeFinder is it gives you a whole bunch of data, and you can backtest it, and you can use all these pieces of data to create your own strategy. Because if you come into the top setup section, right, you can see that with all the combinations of all these different variables, you can see that silver's very bullish. You found that your strategy, when there's a high EdgeFinder score, it's bullish for you and you find bullish trades and it works out well for you, then you could just come to the top setup tab and you can just look here. And what's nice is you can also get rid of anything that's neutral. And then you can use these, and now you have like a little watch list. Similarly, maybe your strategy relies on looking only at neutral markets. So what's really cool is you can get rid of all of these, and now you can look at neutral markets, because maybe your strategy relies relies on assets being generally neutral in environment, confusing variables. Maybe the fundamentals say one thing, the COT says another. Your trading strategy might be like that. You need to find out how best it works for you. Use it as an area to see a whole bunch of data, but don't follow the top setups page if your strategy doesn't allow for it. For example, when I was backtesting and looking at my previous trades, I found that sometimes I would take a bearish trade, even though maybe gold would be bullish, and I would still win. So if I was basing my trades all on the EdgeFinder's data here by saying I can't go bearish because gold is at a 7, then I would miss out on a lot of my winning trades. You need to backtest and you need to see what works for you and what doesn't. I'll give you an example of how I have used this. One thing that I found very interesting is the COT data history. And for my strategy, what I found tends to give me a higher win rate is actually by looking at the COT data history and finding weekly momentum. So for example, if I look at the JPY, I can see that there was a decrease in net position of approximately 8,000 contracts because we went from 82,000 to 74,000. So for me, I can see that as, oh, hedge funds are reducing their positions in JPY from 106 to 89 to 82 to 74. In my strategy, what that tells me is that hedge funds are possibly reversing on their bias, and maybe this is a good time to look for bearish JPY trades. That's the way that I found it useful. Overall, I really like the tool, but I will say there is one thing that I have an issue with, and that is with the EdgeFinder support. I have emailed the support a couple of times asking certain questions to try and understand how the EdgeFinder works, and I have received no response. So on the end of customer support, I would say that they need to up their game, but generally in terms of the tool, I really like it. So that's my honest take on the EdgeFinder. For me, it's not about giving perfect trade signals. It's about helping me line up fundamentals, COT data, sentiment, and seasonality so I make smarter decisions. If you're someone who relies on fundamentals or trades prop firm challenges like I do, I think it's definitely worth checking out. I've dropped the link in my description if you want to try it out for yourself. And if you've used EdgeFinder already, let me know your experience in the comments. I'd love to hear how other traders are using it. Don't forget to subscribe for more honest reviews, prop firm updates, and my raw trading journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.